Welcome to HamCram2018. You are about to embark on a groundbreaking journey into the world of amateur radio. This class is designed to acquire your technical class license. So sit back, enjoy the ride. Sponsored by PittsField Community TV.
And we're here, and we welcome back. Okay, the last section, feed me some good coax. None of this stuff that you learned over the past 2 days works without this. The last section and this section are the two most important sections. You can have a $10,000 radio, you have no antenna, you have no signals. Think of coax cable much like a garden hose. It takes the pressure from the water company, keeps it confined down the tube, and squirts out the other end. Same thing with coax cable. It carries your transmitted RF signal from your radio and delivers it to the antenna. It also takes signals coming in from the antenna and delivers them to your radio, hopefully without leaks. When you get started as a new technician class operator, most of your external antenna work will almost always include a feed line called coax cable. Like a garden hose, don't kink it, scrunch it, chop it, or squish it in the car door. As long as you are careful to keep coax cable in its natural round shape, it requires few installation considerations and can be run right alongside the vehicle frame. Most ham radio coax is rated at 50 ohms impedance, but if you accidentally slam a car door on it and distort its round shape, now the impedance will be much more like 20 ohms, and this will result in a mismatch. The higher we go in frequency on 2 meters, 440 and 900 and 1270, the greater the need for larger diameter coax cable. The higher we go in frequency, the greater the loss of energy within the coax cable. While you get by with a pencil-thin, round-shaped coax for high frequency, I always try to use the larger cable, about the size of my thumb. For most ham radio VHF and UHF antenna installations, tiny coax is for sissies. The common PL259 connector is what we normally use on high-frequency radios, and is common on your little mobile or base 2-meter 440 radio as well. Never try to screw them into an end connector receptacle. If you plan to operate above 400 megs, such as working satellites in 70 centimeters or at 1270 megahertz, the antennas will usually only accept the Type N connector. If you try to screw in a common PL259 connector to an N-type receiver, you will damage the connection for life. Always look to make sure you know the difference between the N connector and the more common PL259. Always use Type N above 400 megs. Your buddy down the street has a very special gift for you. Air Core coax cable. Tell him thanks, but no thanks. This is professional cable for commercial communications and requires special connectors plus dry nitrogen gas feeding down the inside. And it's like working with a frozen garden hose. Stick with regular ham radio coax cable and you'll be set. The Air Core line is good, but requires special techniques to keep the water out. Moisture getting into your coax cable is the #1 cause of a lousy signal on the air. Keep your coax dry. Always seal exposed coax cable connectors up at the antenna feed point. Regular PL259 connectors are not watertight. Okay, so you have the brand new antenna on the roof, and you are wearing your safety glasses and hard hat for roof safety. Good job. But before you step back to admire your work, double check for the edge of the roof. And also double check that you have completely sealed that PL259 with a gooey substance called coax seal. This will keep the water out and prevent feed line losses. Always buy professional grade coax cable. Quality coax has an outer jacket that will not break down in ultraviolet light from the sun. If you try to use the old CB radio coax, the jacket may be already breaking down, allowing moisture to enter the cable. You'll be off the air in an instant when the next rainstorm hits. And here it seems like it's every day. RG58 coax cable is for sissies. It's very small and losses are high. RG8 is the big stuff, with less loss than any frequency. We call it RG8 style coax, as there are many similar sizes of this coax, with even better internal construction to minimize the losses. With the picture, the top one there, the little thin stuff, is the RG58 stuff, and the bigger stuff there is the RG8. And here's a little chart that you don't have to memorize, but it just gives you the breakdown of the frequency loss of dBs and the frequency with the different ranges of coax. Let me give you a minute to absorb this before we move on. Absorb. If you're getting real serious about operating with satellites, especially those in elliptical orbits, thousands of miles out, you may wish to locate that guy down the street who had the spool of air-insulated hardline coax. Ask him for a hunk of it and let him do the connections too. Air-insulated hardline is the ultra best for weak signal work on VHF and UHF, but requires a big deal in getting all the connectors properly soldered. Most 2-meter 440 megahertz mobiles and white fiberglass base antennas are preset to the bands of operation. Down on the worldwide bands, like your voice privileges on 10 meters, you may need to do some antenna adjustments. A handy piece of test equipment is the antenna analyzer. This allows you to work on the antenna safely on the roof and then test its resonance frequency without needing to climb down the ladder to transmit on your big ham rig. The little SWR analyzer hooks directly to the base of the antenna and allows you to do the test easily while on the roof. If you decide to homebrew your own antenna system, you'll have fun, but you'll need to obtain some additional test equipment, like a standing wave ratio SWR meter. This will allow you to test how well your antenna, which we call the load, is matched to the transmitter impedance, as measured in your coax feed line. We would want both to be 50 ohms for a perfect 1-to-1 impedance match. In most situations, the SWR meter is most useful immediately after the transmitter and before any antenna matching or tuning devices. The antenna tuner, if any, the transmission line, and the antenna proper form an antenna system. And the SWR meter is a good way to determine that the system is tuned and matched properly to the transmitter. However, there's a lot more to antenna performance than SWR itself, and you should avoid obsessing about SWR, as it is common practice among newcomers and some old-timers as well. If your antenna match is perfect, you will have a low standing wave ratio, and there will be an efficient transfer of power up the coax to your antenna system with minimal loss. The perfect match, as read on SWR meter, would be 1-to-1. You're good up until about, I'd say 2-to-1, 3, anything past 3.1, maybe not so good. 4, you definitely got a problem. Or like my antenna systems without the tuner, 10-to-1 match. When you transmit into an external antenna with your handheld, you will notice that the radio chassis will get warm. This is normal on high power after about 45 seconds of transmitting. You would be cautioned never to use high power for continuous transmission for more than a couple of minutes, or else the unit gets very warm. Handheld radios do not possess the circuitry to self-protect or overheat on high SWR. On a mobile, single-band, or dual-band radio, they too will begin to get warm on transmit. If you had a bad antenna, if a bad antenna is detected with an elevated SWR, you will actually see the power output indicator on the mobile begin to fold back. This fold back is automatic circuitry that limits power output to protect the solid-state transmitter device. It will normally reduce the power with an SWR higher than 2.1. So if your SWRs crap out, you're going to know about it, because you'll go from transmitting looking like S9 to transmitting looking like S-nothing. You know you got problems. In a typical amateur radio installation, a 4-to-1 SWR reading is an indication of an impedance mismatch. between your transmission line and your load, the antenna, and that all the available power is not being delivered. However, where you measure SWR is important. Many effective antenna systems have high SWR readings on the antenna side of the tuner, for instance. However, the SWR that your transmitter sees should be as low as possible, ideally 1-to-1. The SWR of the antenna remains the same. It just fools the radio into thinking you've got a better match than you really do. It's a windy day, and you notice that your local repeater jumps up and down in signal strength. In fact, you tune around and notice that many other stations are doing the same thing on your external chimney mount dual band antenna. Guess what? You probably have a loose connection up at the antenna or a loose coax cable feed line connector. Don't transmit. Safely get up on the roof and see what is loose. The technical ham may substitute an inline directional watt meter for an SWR meter. The most popular is manufactured by Bird, and a rotating sensor element allows the technical ham to compute power forward and reverse power coming back due to an improperly constructed antenna or a bad feed line match. If moisture creeps into the exposed coax cable connector in wet weather, some of your transmitted energy goes up into worthless heat at the connection point. Keep your coax cable connectors covered and make sure there is no nick on the outside of the jacket. An antenna tuner will match your 6 and 10 meter transceiver to an antenna system that might not be perfectly tuned to the frequency on which you wish to operate. Antenna tuners are normally found in 2 meter 440 megahertz systems. I like to test my brand new radios with a dummy load, which prevents the signal from being sent out on the airwaves. The dummy load lets me look at my signal on a spectrum analyzer to make sure it's absolutely clean before I hook up to an outside antenna. You plug the antenna into it and the other side into your transmitter, and you transmit, and you look on your spectrum analyzer, and you'll see what you're doing, if it's running the right way or if it's not. A dummy load is not a necessary accessory for any ham shack. Where you buy one, let me try this again. The dummy load is a necessary accessory for any ham shack, where you buy one or build one. Extended tuning on the air is one of the infallible hallmarks of a lid. Learn to use a dummy load. Don't be a dummy load. A dummy load consists of a non-inductive resistor of sufficient power rating to handle your transmitter power. Official, non-inductive resistors can be expensive, but you can build a fairly effective dummy load from large clusters of small carbon resistors. You can even use a heat lamp, at least at the HF frequencies. If you shield it properly and you use some method of properly matching it, such as a good antenna tuner, keep in mind the heat lamp changes resistance radically with power. But with a good antenna tuner, you can find the sweet spot. Classic dummy loads such as Heath cantennas are available at nearly every swap meet and can handle a full gallon FCC 1000 watt, well, it's 15 watts legal limit now, but of power for a while.
You can still buy them brand new.
All right, so here we go, the last set of questions. Which of the following is a common use of coax cable? We in agreement? B? And it says B. Why is coax cable used more often than any other feed line for amateur radio antenna systems? Everybody says B? Ooh, it's A. It's easy to use and requires few special installation considered. Buy it, hook it up, you're done. What is the impedance of the most commonly used coax cable in typical amateur radio installations? B it is. What generally happens as the frequency of a signal passing through coax cable is increased? I have C and I have D. Who gets the prize? Mr. Math over there gets the prize. Which of the following is true of PL259 type coax connectors? You in agreement with C? There you go. Which of the following connectors is mostly suitable for frequencies above 400 megs? What is a disadvantage of air core coax cable when compared to foam or solid dielectric types? Everybody says C? C it is. Which of the following is the most common cause for failure of coax cables, besides letting Rich put it up? A? He wasn't here to hear that. Why should coax connectors exposed to the weather be sealed against water intrusion? I have A. Everybody says A? A has it. Why should the outer jacket of a coax cable be resistant to ultraviolet light? D? B? What are we saying, D? D it is. What electrical difference exists between the smaller RGA58 and the larger RG8 coax cables? Everybody says C? Guys are good. Which of the following types of feed line has the lowest loss at VHF and UHF? I hear C. I'll say C. Which of the following instruments can be used to determine if an antenna is resonant at the desired operating frequency? B. Everybody say B? There we go. What, in general terms, is standing wave ratio? A it is. Where should an inline SWR meter be connected to monitor the standing wave ratio of a station antenna system? You hear A. A is it. Why is it important to have a low SWR in the antenna system that uses coax cable feed line? Here B. Everybody agree? What reading on an SWR meter indicates a perfect impedance match between the antenna and the feed line? C it is. What is the approximate SWR value above which the protection circuits in most solid-state transmitters begin to reduce transmitting power? Here A. Everybody agree? A. What does an SWR reading of 4.1 mean? D is right. What might cause erratic changes in SWR readings? B is correct. What instrument other than an SWR meter could you use to determine if a feed line and antenna are properly matched? I hear D. What happens to power lost in the feed line? You think it's C? C it is. What does the antenna tuner do? I heard A. Everybody agree? What is the primary purpose of a dummy load? A? I hear A. What does a dummy load consist of? B is right. And that's it. We are done. Thank you.